Does the ring of dried out food on the sides of this pot look familiar to you? If you've soaked or scrubbed this stuff from the sides of your pot, I've got 2 words for you. Stop it. This is what we call side fond, and it can bring a ton of flavor to your cooking. So what is a fond and why should you care? Well, fond means foundation, and it is the flavor base for most of the sauces, gravies, stocks you see in Western European cuisine. Whether you're making a stew, a pot roast, a pan sauce, the first step is to build a fond. How do you do this? Well, you would add some oil to your pot or skillet, add some meat or meat scraps. If you're vegetarian or vegan, maybe you're using onion or mushroom. As they cook, brown bits appear on the bottom of the pot. That's the fond. That's what's critical for great flavor. After you've got those brown bits, you add water or a watery liquid like a stock or a wine, and wine's nice, but it's not essential. After the fond dissolves in that liquid, you can add other flavorings to the liquid, or you can cook it down to concentrate the flavor that's already there. Or maybe do both. Here's the thing though, you don't need to make that fond at the beginning of the recipe. And you don't have to put it on the bottom of the pot. If you set things up right, you can have it appear on the sides of the pot as the rest of the food is cooking. Then all that's left to do is make sure you use it instead of washing it down the drain. Let's have a look at my pork ragu with pappardelle recipe to see just how much a side fond can add. What are the conditions necessary for encouraging a side fond to form? Well, obviously you need heat. In order to get good browning in a reasonable amount of time, you're going to need temperatures of at least 300 degrees. For this recipe, I'm going to be working with a 350 degree oven. That's hot enough to get good browning, but not so hot that I'm worried about my food drying out or burning. Now, we definitely need some starting materials. The brown bits that form, they're the product of the Maillard reaction. And for the Maillard reaction, we need 2 classes of compounds, amino acids and simple sugars. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Here, they'll be coming from the pancetta, which is already in this pot, and the pork shoulder, which I'll be adding shortly. Now for our simple sugars. Simple sugars are the building blocks of carbohydrates, and here they'll be coming from our vegetables, specifically onion and fennel. So I can hear some of you thinking, oh, but I hate fennel. First off, hate's a strong word. Second, fennel is fantastic. Fennel and pork are a really classic pairing in Italian cuisine, and for good reason. It's a great flavor combo. Now, if the thing that kind of sets you off about fennel is its anisey flavor, it's kind of assertive when you first start cooking. When fennel is cooked long enough, that anisey aroma, it blows off. What's left behind when you're eating the fennel is a soft, subtle sweetness that's fantastic with pork. Have I convinced you to try fennel? If you have tried it and have maybe turned around a little bit, let me know. If you still hate it, I also want to know. Fennel's so divisive. Now that my vegetables have softened, I'm going to add some aromatics. I've got some black pepper, a nice amount of garlic, some chopped thyme, and a little bit of salt. Now, the timing of adding aromatics is actually pretty interesting. You can get them in early to kind of toast them off, or you can add them later to cook them more subtly. What happens is the flavor that they will impart on the dish changes depending on how hard they're cooked and how long they're cooked. Lastly, we need water. Why water? Water's a universal solvent, and what that means is pretty much everything dissolves in water. In this recipe, I'm going to be using both water and cream. Why cream? Because it's delicious. But it also has another function, that extra fat in there. It's going to help keep the pork fat emulsified so that our pasta won't be greasy. So, what's that water doing for us? Well, when that fond forms, we don't want it to stay in the pot. We want it to dissolve into something. We want it to flavor something. Think of water molecules as funny little magnets. They've got a positive side and a negative side. And those electrical charges, it allows the water to go in and kind of pull our fond compounds apart. They just dissolve. They'll dissolve right into that liquid, flavor it, and flavor our pasta. Now that I've set myself up for the side fond to form, I'm just going to wrap this recipe up. I'm going to add my pork butt. I'll pop a lid on this, chuck it in the oven for 90 minutes, and we'll see what we get. This pork has braised for about 90 minutes and it looks great. It smells amazing. You can see all the fond that has appeared without any work from us. Well, me, without any work from me. Let's get this pork out of here. Now, I could grab a spatula or a wooden spoon and kind of splash some of this liquid up the sides of the pot in order to wash that fond down. But there's an easier way. I'm just gonna pop this lid right back on. And what's happening is the steam is building up inside. It's going to condense onto the sides of the pot and kind of soften it so that after 10 minutes, I can come in with a spatula and just run it around and scrape it right off. Much faster, much less messy. So it's subtle, and I don't know if you can see it. The fond is actually darkening the color of this sauce slightly, but more importantly, it's bringing a lot more flavor. Flavor that I didn't have to work to put in here. When I was testing this recipe, I spent a lot of time searing the pork butt and trying to build that fond early. Turns out it was totally unnecessary. The other nice thing about taking advantage of a side fond is there's a ton of surface area up the sides of the pot that when you're trying to get browning by searing, you're not taking advantage of. When you sear a piece of meat, the fond forms on the bottom of the pot, and that is pretty much it. You might get a tiny bit of splatter up the sides. Here, we're making use of the entire pot rather than just the bottom. So with that simple scraping step, I was able to get bonus flavor into this sauce, deepen its color, all without doing more work than, running my spat around the side of the pot a couple times. Pretty great, right? This pork butt is juicy and tender and ready for shredding. But why is it other cuts of meat, when prepared in this way, end up dry and stringy? Chicken breasts and pork chops? Looking at you. 2 factors, fat and collagen. Now, fat, when you cook it, it melts. Some of that liquid fat, it stays trapped between the muscle fibers. And when you take a bite of it, some of that fat kind of gushes out in a really pleasant way. It's tasty, it's juicy, perfect. Now let's talk collagen. Collagen is the connective tissue that binds muscle fibers together, and you can think of it as 3 strands of rope that have been twisted together. As you cook it, those ropes will untwist. They're actually gelatin, and they like to grab onto water. As you can see, with enough cooking, that collagen breaks down, and what you're left with is pork that's easy to shred and really juicy. So when you're trying to take advantage of a side fond, be sure to choose a cut of meat that's got a lot of fat and collagen. That'll help it withstand the cooking conditions and oven temperatures necessary for the side fond to form. All right, I'm gonna get this pork back into the pot, cook off some pappardelle, and pig out. So here's my finished dish, and it is a ragu bianco, this style of pasta. It does not rely on tomatoes or red wine for flavor. That's why I was really keen on getting that side fond in there. If you have a look at this recipe, you'll see that we put a little bit of browning in the pot with the pancetta to start with, but that wasn't enough. Taking advantage of the fond that forms on the side of the pot was really the key to skipping a searing step. Well, enough talk, I gotta dive in. All of this rich flavor, it is built on a fond, and conveniently, it is built on a fond that you don't have to work hard to make. You can take advantage of it. It's just bonus flavor. Now here at Cooks Illustrated, we take advantage of this bonus flavor in a couple of different recipes. I first learned about it from Dan Souza in his chicken stew, and recently Steve Dunn's carne adobada con cerdo and Annie Petito's walkaway ratatouille, they both take advantage of this too. So whether you try one of these recipes to see how to create a side fond, or you just happen to notice one when you're pulling a pot out of the oven, whatever you do, don't wash that flavor away. Do you make a dish that features bonus side fond? Have you ever washed it away? Let me know in the comments below. Drop a like, hit the subscribe button, and for more great techniques, check out cooksillustrated.com.